Welcome everyone to the Sea Serpent Cryptid Iceberg Explained. Today we'll be diving into the world of mysterious marine creatures, exploring humanity's fascination with the unknown depths of the oceans and lakes. Now without further ado, let's begin. Tier 1. HMS Daedalus's 1848 Sea Serpent. In 1848, the British frigate HMS Daedalus reported encountering a mysterious sea creature in the South Atlantic, about 300 miles off the coast of modern Namibia. Captain P.M. Kwa described the animal as an enormous serpent, at least 60 feet long, with its head and shoulders raised 4 feet above the water. It moved at a steady speed of 12 to 15 miles per hour, without visible propulsion, and maintaining a straight course. The creature was dark brown with a lighter throat and lacked fins, but it had what appeared to be a mane or seaweed along its back. Lieutenant E.A. Drummond, another witness, added that the creature had a long, pointed, and flattened head around 10 feet in length, with a dorsal fin about 20 feet behind it. He noted that the head occasionally dipped below the waves and described its appearance as snake-like. His drawings, which were rediscovered in 1997, closely matched his detailed observations, depicting an elongated creature with a flat, triangular head and dorsal features. An anonymous officer's later account echoed these details, adding that the creature was visible for 10 minutes and close enough to distinguish features like its mouth and nostrils. However, this account was written a decade later and may have been influenced by earlier reports and illustrations. Theories about the creature's identity have ranged from a plesiosaur to an oarfish, a giant eel, or even an unknown marine species. However, modern interpretations suggest it was likely a rorqual whale, such as a sei whale. These whales feed by skimming the ocean surface with their mouths open, which is a behavior that could create the illustration of a long, flat head rising above the water. Now, Drummond's drawings align with this description, showing a pointed, elongated head similar to a rorqual's profile during surface feeding. The reported mane could have been debris or a misinterpretation of dorsal ridges. Now, discrepancies in accounts, such as whether the head remained above water, suggest differences in perspective or memory. The weather described was dark and squally, likely contributing to this ambiguity. Altamaha. The Altamaha is said to inhabit the coastal marshes and waterways near the mouth of Georgia's Altamaha River, particularly around Darien and Butler Island. This creature is deeply woven into the region's folklore and is one of the most frequently reported sea monsters in North America. It's typically described as a 30-foot-long animal with seal-like flippers, though skeptics suggest it could just be debris, vegetation, or an already known marine creature. The Altamaha gained national attention in 1981 when Larry Gwynn, a former newspaper publisher, and his friend Stephen Wilson reported seeing it while fishing. They described two large humps about 5 feet apart, creating a wave similar to a speedboat. Their sighting led to other reports, including one from Harvey Blackman, who claimed to have seen a 15 to 20 foot long creature with a snake-like head in the 1970s. Another witness, Frank Culpepper, noted that the creature's wave was so powerful it rocked nearby boats. Reports of the Altamaha has also dated back much farther, including an account from 1830 from Captain Delano of the schooner Eagle, who described it as a 70-foot-long creature near St. Simon's Island. He insisted it was unlike any whale he had encountered. The area's history adds to the mystique. Darien, originally called New Inverness, was founded in 1735 by Scottish Highlanders from Loch Ness, bringing with them tales of the Loch Ness Monster. Earlier legends from Tama Indians and Creek Indians discussed of a giant snake-like creature in the area's rivers. So sightings continue in modern times. In 2010, an amateur photographer captured video of an unidentified object swimming near Fort King George and Darien. Nahuelito. Jessica Campbell and Paul Jacob were relaxing at the beach near Peñuela de San Pedro on Lake Nahuel, Argentina, in the summer of 1994 when they had a close encounter with the cryptid Nahuelito. The lake's name, which means Lake of the Tiger's Island in the Mapak language, is renowned for reports of this mysterious creature. It's described as a massive creature with multiple humps that resemble waves and small fins for swimming. Nahuelito is known to locals by names like El Cuero, which means the leathery one, and El Manto, the cloaked one. Jessica and Paula first spotted Nahuelito swimming near the shore in calm, windless conditions. Jessica recalled its breathing and described the experience as unforgettable. Interestingly, neither she nor Paula saw the creature's head, a detail consistent with other sightings. Later that evening, the creature returned, swimming toward Jessica's position on a rock, prompting her to flee. Christian Muller, who shared their story, also had his own encounters 7 years earlier while riding a bus along the lakeshore near Loch, a city on the southern side of Lake Nahuelito. In the early morning hours, Muller noticed what appeared to be a dark-colored ship moving across the lake. However, as the bus approached, the object suddenly submerged, leaving viewers stunned. The bus driver stopped, and passengers exclaimed Nahuelito. Though Muller saw no fins or head, he witnessed a large, dark object sinking beneath the water. Reports of Nahuelito are often linked to clear, sunny days during the Argentine summer, though Muller's sightings occur under cloudy skies. Locals, including Paula's brother, have even recreated the cryptid's strange breathing sounds, which he finds eerily accurate and frightening. This legend of Nahuelito has persisted for decades. More recently, in 2006, several photos allegedly showing the creature were anonymously delivered to a Loch newspaper. While the images are striking, skeptics have noted similarities to hoaxes by Frank Sriel in the 1960s, suggesting the possibility of fraud. Nonetheless, Nahuelito sightings date back much further. Fossil discoveries of ichthyosaurs in the region have led to speculation that the cryptid could be a surviving prehistoric creature, though there is lack of confirmed head sightings, which makes this difficult to prove. Cadborosaurus. Cadborosaurus, or caddy, is a sea creature linked to sightings along the British Columbian coast since the 1880s. Reports describe it as a long, serpentine creature with features ranging from a camel-like or horse-like head to humps along its back. It gained its name in 1933 from journalist Archie Wills of the Victoria Daily Times, coinciding with the global surge of interest in the Loch Ness monster at the time. Critics argue that the timing suggests sensationalized reporting rather than genuine discoveries. Caddy sightings have been inconsistent, with accounts ranging from swimming deer and seals to indistinct shapes in the water. Indigenous imagery and folklore have also been linked to the creature, though people say that such connections often ignore the original context of the myth. For example, Manhuset legends describe Hithalik, a creature supposedly related to caddy, yet its behavior contradicts key characteristics attributed to the cryptid. In 1937, a significant piece of evidence emerged, a carcass found in the stomach of a sperm whale near Naden Harbor, British Columbia. The remains were about 3.8 meters long and were described as serpentine with unique features. Photos of the carcass became central to Caddy's story, though the specimen itself was lost. In the 1990s, cryptozoologist Edward Boesfield and Paul LeBlanc identified the carcass as a new species, Cadborosaurus wilsey, and linked it to plesiosaurs, despite the apparent lack of similarity. Their conclusions were met with skepticism, as their research contained factual errors, questionable interpretations, and reliance on ambiguous photos. Now, skeptics propose that alternative explanations for the Naden Harbor carcass. Some suggest it was a decomposed basking shark, whose remains often take on a serpentine appearance, and others point to sturgeon, which have anatomical traits that align with the descriptions and photographs. Both ideas are plausible, though neither can be confirmed due to the absence of physical remains. Caddy's proponents argue that sightings and the 1937 carcass represent an unknown marine species. However, discrepancies among sightings and a lack of rigorous evidence weaken this case. Critics suggest that caddy sightings often stem from misidentifications, hoax, or the human tendency to seek patterns. Ogopogo. The legend of Ogopogo, in the language of the Okanagan people, has been a part of British Columbia's Okanagan Lake for centuries. Indigenous traditions describe it as a spiritual entity taking the form of an aquatic serpent. The Silex people viewed it with both fear and reverence, offering gifts when crossing near its supposed home at Squally Point, close to Rattlesnake Island. Now, European settlers later described it as a cryptid, resembling either a giant sturgeon or a prehistoric marine reptile, which looks like a plesiosaur, or even an unusual natural phenomenon, such as a wave. The earliest reported encounter by settlers dates back to 1855, when John McDougall claimed his horses were pulled underwater while he crossed the lake by a canoe. In 1872, Susan Allison described seeing what she believed was a dinosaur. Over time, descriptions of Ogopogo have remained relatively consistent, often portraying a serpentine creature up to 15 meters long with multiple humps. Sightings have also occurred in nearby lakes connected by underwater passages, such as Skaha Lake. Some suggest that Ogopogo could be a large fish, like a sturgeon, which is capable of growing over 6 meters. However, there are no official records that confirm sturgeon are present in Okanagan Lake, like dams have prevented their migration since the 1920s. Others point to prehistoric species such as Plesiosaurus or Basilosaurus, likening Ogopogo's features to these ancient creatures, particularly as other living fossils, such as a coelacanth, have been discovered in modern times. Now, unusual waves and disturbances on the lake's surface also contribute to the legend. These occurrences, often observed in calm conditions, have led to theories about underwater currents, rising gases, or thermal changes creating strange patterns. Visual evidence includes the 1968 fold-in film, which captured a large, unidentified object moving through the water. Later analysis confirmed that the object was tangible, though its nature remains unknown. A 2000 sonar scan revealed a 12-meter-long object, further causing interest in the lake's depths. Now, there are also artifacts and reports that have also played a role in the story. In the late 19th century, a large vertebrate bone, believed to be from a whale, was discovered in the lake but later disappeared before it could be identified. And during bridge construction in the mid-20th century, divers reported seeing large aquatic animals, though they were unable to identify them, with some choosing to leave the project out of fear. Nessie. The Loch Ness Monster, a large marine creature, is believed by some to inhabit Loch Ness in Scotland, though much of the evidence supporting its existence has been discredited and is largely considered a myth. Reports of a creature living in Loch Ness go back to ancient times, with a local stone carving by the Picts describing a mysterious beast with flippers. The earliest written account comes from the 7th century in a biography of Saint Columba. According to the story, in 565 AD, the monster bit a swimmer and was about to attack another man when Columba intervened, commanding the creature to go back, which it allegedly did. Over the centuries, only occasional sightings were reported, many of which seemed inspired by Scottish folklore, which are filled with mythical water creatures. In 1933, the Loch Ness Monster gained widespread attention. That year, a road was built near Loch Ness, providing an unobstructed view of the lake. In April, a couple reported seeing a large animal, comparing it to a dragon or a prehistoric monster, which disappeared into the water after crossing their car's path. The sighting was published in a Scottish newspaper, triggering a wave of other reports. In December 1933, the Daily Mail hired big game hunter Marmaduke Wetherell to search for the creature. Wetherell claimed to have found large footprints along the lake, which he believed were left by a powerful, soft-footed animal about 6 meters long. However, zoologists at the Natural History Museum described the tracks were made using a hippopotamus leg umbrella stand, which discredited Wetherell's findings. Now, the growing interest in the Loch Ness Monster led to further attempts to prove its existence. In 1934, English physician Robert Kenneth Wilson took a photograph of what appeared to be the creature's head and neck, now known as a surgeon's photograph. The image caused an international sensation, with many speculating that the creature was a plesiosaur, a marine reptile that went extinct about 66 million years ago. Over the years, several sonar explorations, including those in 1987 and 2003, attempted to locate the monster, but none were successful. Multiple photographs of the creature surfaced, but most were debunked as fakes or misidentifications of other animals or objects. In 1994, it was revealed that Wilson's famous photograph was a hoax, orchestrated by Wetherell as an act of revenge. The monster in the picture was actually a plastic and wooden head attached to a toy submarine. Now, more recently, in 2018, researchers conducted a DNA survey of Loch Ness to identify the organisms living in the water. While there was no evidence of a plesiosaur or a similarly large creature, the survey did reveal the presence of numerous eels, leading some to suggest that the Loch Ness Monster could be an oversized eel. Champ. Champ, also known as Champy, or the Lake Champlain Monster, is a cryptid said to inhabit Lake Champlain, a 125-mile-long freshwater lake located along the borders of Vermont, New York, and Quebec, Canada. Now, despite a lack of scientific evidence, over 300 sightings have been reported, making Champ a popular local legend and a significant tourist attraction, particularly in the Burlington, Vermont, and Plattsburgh, New York areas. The creature is often compared to the Loch Ness Monster, with some suggesting it could be a descendant of plesiosaurs. The legend of Champ has been embraced as a cultural and economic asset. Port Henry, New York has erected a large model of the creature and celebrates Champ Day annually in August. Champ also serves as a mascot for the Vermont Lake Monsters, a minor league baseball team. In 1977, Sandra Mancy captured a photograph supposedly showing a plesiosaur-like creature emerging from the lake. The image drew comparisons to the famous surgeon's photograph of the Loch Ness Monster. However, skepticism arose due to the shallow depth of the bay, as it's only 14 feet deep where the photo was taken, making it unlikely for a large animal to move or hide there. Some have suggested the object in the photograph could be a tree trunk rising to the surface, since gas from decaying wood causes it to float. In 2005, fishermen Dick Appleter and Pete Baudet filmed what they believed was Champ, shows a shape that could be interpreted as the head and neck of a plesiosaur-like animal. However, retired FBI forensic analysts reviewing the tape found no conclusive evidence of a creature, despite agreeing that the video had not been manipulated. An intriguing piece of evidence emerged in 2003 when the Fauna Communications Research Institute recorded echolocation sounds in the lake as part of a Discovery Channel program. The sounds were linked to those made by a beluga whale or orcas, though no such marine mammals are known to inhabit Lake Champlain, thus the sources of the sounds remain unidentified. Tier 2. Mokele-Mbembe. The Mokele-Mbembe is a cryptid reported to inhabit the dense swamps, rivers, and lakes of the Congo Basin, particularly in the Lukalu region and Lake Teli. Descriptions characterize it as a massive, amphibious animal with a long neck, small head, large body, and a long, muscular tail, often compared to a sauropod dinosaur. This creature has caused fascination for decades, blending elements of local folklore with cryptozoological inquiry. The name Mokele-Mbembe is commonly used across various indigenous groups in the Congo Basin, though the scope of its meaning varies. For some communities, it represents a real, rare, and dangerous animal, while for others, it is tied to mythological or spiritual beliefs. Historical records suggest the existence of this creature has been part of a local oral tradition for centuries. The earliest Western accounts come from missionaries and explorers and document 18th and 19th centuries. In 1913, German colonial officer Ludwig Freiherr von Steinzu-Losnitz documented reports of a large herbivorous animal with an elephant-sized body, long neck, and crocodile-like tail. Stein noted that the creature was said to attack boats, though it was not carnivorous. In the mid-20th century, similar accounts surfaced from both locals and explorers, with consistent descriptions of a large animal that avoided human contact and primarily fed on vegetation, particularly the Molombo liana, which is a type of aquatic plant with apple-like fruits. In one of the most famous accounts, local pygmies near Lake Teli reportedly killed a Mokele-Mbembe around 1959 by trapping it in a spiked barrier constructed in a water channel. According to these accounts, the creature's flesh was later consumed during a celebratory feast, but those who partook allegedly died shortly thereafter. This has led to speculation that the animal may carry toxins or pathogens, though there isn't any concrete evidence that this has ever been found. This incident remains as one of the central narratives surrounding the cryptid. Western expeditions to confirm the existence of the Mokele-Mbembe gained momentum in the 20th century, specifically around 1980. Researchers like Roy P. Mackle, James Powell, and Herman Regusters conducted expeditions into the Congo, often interviewing locals who described sightings. Regusters' 1981 expedition to Lake Teli reported several encounters, including sounds attributed to the creature, large waves on the water's surface, and a glimpse of a long-necked animal. Regusters claimed to have captured audio recordings of loud roars he believed belonged to the Mokele-Mbembe. However, his photographs were too low in quality to provide definitive proof, and some of his accounts have been questioned due to lack of corroboration with local guides. The descriptions collected from eyewitnesses have varied, but generally align around a large-necked animal with smooth or scaly skin, reddish or grayish in color. Some accounts mention dermal spines, or a single horn-like structure, often attributed to male specimens. It's frequently described as herbivorous and nocturnal, emerging from the water at dusk to feed on shoreline vegetation. Witnesses describe its behavior as aggressive when disturbed, with reports of it attacking canoes, and sometimes even crocodiles or hippopotamuses. Zoologists have proposed alternative explanations for these sightings, suggesting that locals and explorers may have encountered familiar animals under unusual conditions. Large African animals like crocodiles, swimming elephants, or even soft-shelled turtles have been considered as possible sources of misidentification. Others also have theorized that the sightings could stem from exaggerated or even misinterpreted accounts passed down from generations. Some cryptozoologists have proposed that Mokele-Mbembe could represent a prehistoric animal surviving in isolation, as previously mentioned a sauropod dinosaur, or even a giant reptile, or maybe even a previously unknown species. The prehistoric theory often cites the similarity of the creature's description to fossilized sauropods like Diplodocus or Apatosaurus. There are several artifacts and carvings that are linked to the Mokele-Mbembe. A small gold weight from Ghana depicting a long-necked animal has been compared to a sauropod and is often cited as potential evidence of cultural memory of prehistoric creatures. Also, wooden carvings found in Cameroon and the Congo Basin depict creatures resembling long-necked reptiles. However though, these artifacts remain speculative and unverified in their connection to the Mokele-Mbembe. Gloucester Sea Serpent. In August 1817, and again in 1819, a creature described as a sea snake was sighted in Gloucester Bay and Nahuelito Bay, Massachusetts. Hundreds of people, including reputable witnesses, reported seeing the animal, which led to widespread fascination and even a bounty for its capture. Eyewitnesses described a long, serpentine creature with a horse-sized head, a body estimated between 50 and 100 feet in length, and a girth comparable to a barrel. Despite repeated attempts to capture or kill the creature, it eluded all efforts and its true identity remains unknown. The sightings were taken seriously, with notable individuals such as Shipmaster Solomon Allen, Justice of the Peace Lonson Nash, and the ship's carpenter Matthew Gaffney among those who had documented encounters. Gaffney even claimed to have shot the creature at close range, though it appeared unharmed. Reports described the animal as moving with an undulating motion, unlike the lateral movement of typical serpents. The phenomenon attracted significant attention from naturalists and organizations. The New Linnean Society attempted to classify it scientifically as Scoliophis atlanticus. However, observations varied widely, with some witnesses interpreting what they saw as a single, massive creature, and others noting the possibility of multiple animals swimming together. Some accounts suggested that the sea snake appeared as a series of humps rising and falling in the water, a well-documented optical illusion when animals like pilot whales or otters travel in groups. Descriptions of the creature's physical features added to the intrigue. There's one account that mentioned a sting or prong approximately 4 feet long extending from its head. While this detail was initially puzzling, modern analysts suggest it may point to the narwhal, which is a medium-sized whale with a prominent tusk unique to males. Narwhals typically range from 13 to 18 feet in length and often congregate in pods. In certain conditions, a pod of narwhals could be mistaken for a single serpentine entity. The sting could be a misinterpreted narwhal tusk seen from afar or by untrained observers. Other behaviors observed during the sightings align with narwhals as well. The creature was reported to remain stationary near the shore for hours, a behavior which is consistent with the narwhal's habit of logging on the water surface. Witnesses also describe rapid diving and vertical movement, both characteristics of cetaceans like the narwhal. The creature's dark back and pale underside match the narwhal's coloration, which becomes lighter with age. Despite the Gloucester monster being far south of the narwhal's typical Arctic range, historical records show that these animals occasionally stray into unusual areas. Seasonal migrations and rare stragglers have been documented as far south as Newfoundland and the Mediterranean. It's plausible that in the summer months of 1817 and 1819, narwhals ventured into the Gloucester Bay, giving rise to the sightings. Brosno Dragon. Lake Brosno in the Tver region of Russia, shrouded in mystery and isolation, is said to be the home of the legendary Brosno Dragon. Surrounded by villages, the lake emits an eerie atmosphere. Its depth of 43 meters adds to its enigmatic character, and also the presence of a submerged church near an island whose origins remain unknown due to the difficulty of underwater exploration. The lake sustains various fish species, including perch, pike, and burbot, leading some to think that the Brosno Dragon could survive on such a food supply. The legend of the Brosno Dragon, or Brosnia, dates back to the 13th century when it was said to have frightened Tatar-Mongol horsemen to death as they prepared to invade Russia. Over the centuries, the dragon has been attributed with swallowing fishermen, their boats, and even an entire German airplane during the 1940s. By the 19th century, sightings became less dramatic, with accounts describing this creature surfacing in the evenings and submerging upon a human approach. Today, locals blame it for capsized boats and mysterious disappearances. Regional newspapers continue to cover the legend, occasionally attempting to capture the creature on camera. The Brosno Dragon is often described as resembling a dragon, or more recently, a dinosaur. Some suggest it could be a surviving prehistoric creature, while skeptics propose alternative explanations, such as a mutant beaver or an unusually large fish. There's another theory that suggests that the dragon is not a living creature, but a result of natural phenomena. The fractures at the lake's bottom might conceal a volcanic feature capable of producing limnic eruptions, which are sudden releases of deadly gas that could kill humans and animals, leaving observers to attribute these events to a monster. Now similarly, summer mirages could account for some sightings, although this explanation struggles to address tales of boats being swallowed or people disappearing. Efforts to unravel the mystery include a 2002 investigation by the Cosmopoisic Research Association, which used echo-sounding technology. The team discovered a jelly-like anomaly roughly the size of a railway cart hovering near the lake's bottom, though its nature remains unidentified. This discovery leads to speculation about whether the Brosno Dragon might be an undocumented freshwater species or a relic from the age of dinosaurs. If the creature exists, there are questions that persist about whether it's a single, ancient survivor or a population of elusive animals. U28 Creature. The U28 Creature is described as a massive reptilian animal sighted only once during the First World War by the crew of the German submarine U28. This singular account has led to imaginations and spurred a debate over the creature's identity and origins. The creature was observed on July 30th, 1915, following the torpedoing of the British steamer Iberian. According to Commander Frere George G. von Forstner, the ship sank rapidly, and an underwater explosion followed moments later. This explosion propelled wreckage and an extraordinary animal into the air, approximately 80 feet above the water. The creature, which appeared briefly before sinking out of sight, was described as a 60-foot-long aquatic creature with 4 large webbed limbs, a long tail, and a pointed head. Von Forstner, along with 6 officers, documented the sighting in the submarine's official logbook, noting the impossibility of identifying the animal with certainty. The account's credibility is bolstered by von Forstner's decision to record the event officially, despite the risk of skepticism and ridicule. However, no photographic evidence exists, and further investigation is impossible given the elapsed time and the location of the incident in the deep Atlantic. One theory suggests the creature may have been a surviving mosasaur, a marine reptile that reached sizes comparable to the U28 creature during the late Cretaceous period. Mosasaurs were presumed to have gone extinct around 66 billion years ago, making this possibility intriguing but also pretty speculative. The circumstances of the sighting, occurring amidst wartime chaos and involving an underwater explosion, introduces uncertainty. Some theories speculate the creature could have been in the sea coincidentally, or more improbably have been transported aboard the Iberian. Issie. Lake Ikeda, located on Kyushu Island in Japan, is known for its unique wildlife, but it's also famous as the home of Issie, which is a 30-foot-long serpent-like creature with multiple humps. Issie was once a white mare whose foal was stolen by a samurai. Overcome by grief and rage, the mare threw herself into the lake, transforming into the serpent-like creature, and now searches the waters for her lost child. One of the earliest and most detailed modern sightings occurred on September 3, 1978. Yutaka Kawaji and over 20 of his family members reportedly saw 2 large black humps, each about 16 feet long and 2 feet high, gliding through the lake. Kawaji attempted to follow the creature in a motorboat but could not catch up. Inspired by the sighting, he purchased a camera in hopes of documenting Issie, but never saw the creature again. However, on December 16 of the same year, Toshiaki Matsura reportedly photographed what appeared to be 2 humps with spinal ridges. Matsura's sighting began with a whirlpool forming in the lake and later transitioned to observing the humps through a telescope. His photograph was convincing enough to earn a reward from the local tourism department. Further attention came in 1991 when a video allegedly showing a 30-foot creature swimming in Lake Ikeda was aired on Nippon TV's World's Mysterious Phenomena. These reports reinforced belief in Issie's existence, even though skeptics questioned how such a large creature could inhabit the isolated lake. Since Lake Ikeda is fed only by rain and subsurface water with no direct connection to the sea, theories about Issie entering through underground tunnels seem implausible. One explanation for the sightings involves large Malaysian eels, which have been introduced to the lake and are farmed on its shores. However, the largest eel recorded in the lake was about 5 feet long, far smaller than the humps described by witnesses like Kawaji. Tsaruk. The Tsaruk is a sea serpent reportedly inhabiting the subarctic coastal waters near King and Nunivak Islands in the Bering Sea off Alaska's Pacific coast. Sightings and oral traditions have drawn comparisons between the Tsaruk and similar creatures such as Steller's sea ape and Cadborosaurus. Cryptozoologists have speculated that it might be an unknown pinned species, potentially a northern counterpart to the Antarctic leopard seal. The Tsaruk is often associated with another reported creature, the Pelarayuk, leading to frequent synonymy between the two. Ethnologist John White collected accounts of the Tsaruk from the King Island Inuit, who described the creature as both rare and dangerous. Locals recounted that the Tsaruk could kill hunters, with stories of boats being capsized by the animals, including one relatively recent incident involving the death of a woman. The Coastal Guard personnel stationed in the area corroborated the rarity of these sightings, noting the cultural and mythical significance of the creature to the local population. Despite the fear surrounding the Tsaruk, some reported that the creatures could be attracted by tapping on the insides of boats. Descriptions of the Tsaruk vary. Typically, only the head, neck, and sometimes the tails are visible, leaving the full body form largely unknown. Witnesses claim that the creature could rise 7 to 8 feet above water, from a snake-like head and flipper tail. While often seen in bays, encounters in the open oceans are less common. Some accounts describe the Tsaruk as resembling a giant caterpillar or worm-like animal, adding to the ambiguity of its appearance. Theories about its identity range from biological to cryptozoological. Roy P. Mackle suggested that there might be two types of unidentified marine creatures in the Bering Sea: a long-necked eared seal akin to a larger northern leopard seal, and a zeuglodon-like mammal that lived millions of years ago. The leopard seal hypothesis is supported by similarities in behavior, such as the animals being attracted to sound made on boats, which is a behavior observed in their southern counterparts. Now, Bernard Heuvelmans, a pioneer in cryptozoology, leaned toward the zeuglodon theory, emphasizing its prehistoric ties. Tier 3. Cape Sable Serpent. The Cape Sable Serpent is a cryptid reported off Cape Sable Island, Nova Scotia, Canada. This sea monster is described as being over 50 feet long, with a head resembling that of a boar, featuring sharp teeth, snail-like protruding eyes, and a neck measuring 10 to 15 feet in length and about 2 feet in thickness. The body is said to be covered in 4 gray to green loops spaced approximately 10 feet apart, with a frill running along the back and a segmented vertical tail. Eyewitnesses describe encounters that are both vivid and alarming, with multiple sightings spanning decades. The first notable encounter occurred in July 1976, when Isnir Penny, a seasoned fisherman with over 30 years of experience, reported seeing a colossal creature while fishing near Cape Sable Island. Initially mistaking it for a whale, Penny described how the creature rose approximately 14 to 15 feet out of the water near his boat. Frightened by its approach, he quickly fled the scene. His account drew skepticism until days later when Keith Ross and his son Rodney had their own terrifying encounter in foggy waters near Pollock's Ledge. The creature, described as 50 feet long, had a head resembling a crocodile with bright red, bloodshot eyes, barnacle-covered skin, and 2 long tusks. The Rosses also noted its snake-like body and a fish-like tail. Their vivid description matched Penny's account, lending credibility to the reports. A third sighting followed shortly after when Edgar Nickerson and his teenage son Robert encountered the creature while fishing at night. They described hearing it splash next to their boat and repeatedly emerging from the water. Nickerson attempted to use a sounder to scare it away, tactic effective on whales, but the creature persisted. He later recounted the experience as horrifying, comparing the entity to a devil. The most recent encounter took place on May 4, 1997 in Fortune Bay, Newfoundland. Fisherman Charles Bungay and C. Clark approached what they initially thought were floating garbage bags, but were shocked when a serpentine creature raised its head from the water. Described as having a horse-like head atop a 6-foot-long neck, the creature locked eyes with them before disappearing beneath the surface. Selma. Lake Seljordsvatnet, located in Telemark, Norway, is a glacially formed lake measuring 12 miles long and 1.5 miles wide, with icy cold winds that have given rise to the tales of Selma, a serpent-like creature reportedly living within its depths. Since the late 1750s, over 500 eyewitness accounts have described a 30 to 45 foot long reptilian beast, often compared to a large anaconda, with some reports noting humps on its back. One of the earliest encounters occurred in 1880 when Bjorn Borg and his mother, Gunhild, allegedly severed in attacking Selma in half. While the front half of the creature reportedly rotted on shore, the lower portion was said to have squirmed back into the lake. Another account from 1918 detailed Carl Carlson's encounter at Sandnes Bridge. Carlson described a horse-like head rising 3 feet above the water and approaching him rapidly before disappearing into the depths. Around the same time, Torgil Bjorg found serpent-like chunks of flesh floating in the lake and reported seeing a crocodile-like animal that vanished into a pile of stones. In 1996, 2 fishermen described a 10-foot-long neck with a horse-like head rising from the water and staring at them from only inches away before submerging. A father and son in 2001 recounted seeing what they initially mistook for a log or debris on shore, only to realize it was a massive snake-like creature with a calf-sized head and a body at least 30 feet long. The animal retreated into the water after being startled. Now, there have been efforts to study Selma by Jan Ove Sundberg and the Global Underwater Search Team since 1977. There have been expeditions that utilize sonar, hydrophones, and a custom-built trap known as a comet. This 18-foot-long device was designed to catch a juvenile serpent for DNA analysis and tagging. Although these attempts have not yielded a live specimen, there are intriguing sonar readings that have been recorded. Theories about Selma's identity range from giant eels or catfish to prehistoric reptiles that have adapted to survive the lake's frigid waters. While reptiles are generally unsuited for such environments, some researchers speculate that an unknown species might have evolved to thrive there. Others suggest that the creature could be a misidentified natural phenomenon or just an exaggerated account of known animals. Pensacola Sea Serpent. The Pensacola sea monster tale from March 1962 stands as one of the Gulf of Mexico's most debated stories. Despite its proximity to the vastness and mystery of the Gulf, reports of sea monsters or unexplained aquatic phenomena in the region are surprisingly scarce. However, the harrowing events surrounding 16-year-old Edward McCleary's account remain a central point for those fascinated by this cryptid. On March 24, 1962, McCleary and 4 friends paddled a raft from Fort Pickens to explore the sunken USS Massachusetts. Weather conditions deteriorated, with strong tides and fog complicating their journey. Eventually, the group abandoned the raft and attempted to swim toward a buoy. McCleary was the sole survivor, rescued the next morning after reaching shore. Initially, he attributed his friends' deaths to drowning in the treacherous conditions, with no mention of any sea creature. The narrative changed years later when McCleary detailed an entirely different version of events in a 1965 Fate magazine article. He described eerie stillness, full outer reminiscent of rotting fish, and a strange telephone pole-like creature emerging from the water. The creature, with small eyes and a bulbous head, allegedly attacked his friends one by one, dragging them into the depths. McCleary claimed to have seen the creature open his mouth and pull one of his companions under, leaving him to swim for his life. Skeptics have proposed alternative explanations though, ranging from hallucinations caused by methane gas released from the seafloor to the possibility of a known marine animal such as a North Atlantic right whale being mistaken for a sea monster. Regardless though, the lack of corroborative evidence and the elements of McCleary's later account have left the story open to interpretation. The Gulf of Mexico, although isn't known for numerous sea monster tales, has its share of unusual sightings. For instance, in 1943, naturalist Thomas Helms reported encountering a strange creature with a tiger-like head and a 4-foot neck near Pensacola Beach. While some think it could have been a sea lion or seal, Helms' expertise in marine life casts doubt on such a simple misidentification. Now, in 1976, the Paddy family, which is well known in Pensacola's fishing industry, pulled a bizarre creature from the depths about 150 miles offshore. Initially baffling marine biologists, the creature was later identified as Bathnomus gigantus, which is a giant deep-sea isopod. Its alien-like appearance and size, which is larger than typically seen for its species, added an unsettling edge to an already weird find. 1848 HMS Plumper Sea Serpent. In December 1848, the crew of the HMS Plumper reported seeing a strange creature off the coast of Portugal, just months after the famous sighting by the HMS Daedalus. According to one of the ship's officers, the creature was long and black, with a sharp head. Its back was said to rise about 20 feet above the water, while its head extended around 8 feet out of the sea. The officer also described a mane-like feature running along its back that moved as the creature glided through the waves. The similarities between this sighting and the Daedalus encounter are pretty striking. Both described a massive, serpent-like creature with a visible head and a back that rose high above the water. The mane is another common detail, as it was said to be smooth and deliberate movement. This has led some to wonder if the two ships encountered the same creature, or at least the same type of animal, through the Atlantic. Since the Plumper sighting happened just a few months after the Daedalus' encounter and closer to European waters, it's possible the creature was following a migratory path. However, without further evidence or additional sightings, the true nature of what these crews saw remains a mystery. Some think it might have been an unknown species, such as a giant eel or a surviving prehistoric animal, while others suggest it could have been a misidentified pod of whales or other marine animals. Marine Saurian. The marine saurian is a type of sea serpent described in cryptozoology as resembling a crocodile or alligator. Unlike any known crocodiles, these creatures are reported far from coastal areas and saltwater crocodile habitats, appearing instead in the open ocean. Marine saurians are categorized under different systems used in cryptozoology: the mystery saurian in Coleman-Hughes classification, the saurian sea serpent in the Champlain system, and the giant marine crocodilomorph in Marshall system. Sightings of these creatures have been reported worldwide, particularly in tropical and subtropical regions, with notable accounts near New Zealand in the 20th and 21st centuries. Bernard Heuvelmans, who is a very known cryptozoologist, classified 9 marine saurian reports, 4 of which he considered reliable and 5 probable. He thought that these creatures might be surviving Thalattosaucians, marine crocodilians from the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods, or possibly mosasaurs, which are large marine reptiles from the same era. However, though, there's a lack of definitive evidence, so Heuvelmans refrained from giving them a formal scientific name. Yet other researchers have offered different theories. For example, Richard Freeman suggests that the oversized or displaced saltwater crocodiles could explain the sightings, while Carl Schucker argues that there isn't enough information to make a specific identification. Now, Michael Woodley proposes that the marine saurian might not be a reptilian at all, but rather a cetacean like a Basilosaurus or Rhodocetus. Now, Dale A. Drinnen further divides marine saurians into subcategories, such as horned, sea reptiles, and potential mosasaurs. Some interpretations link these creatures to myths, suggesting they might represent the biblical Leviathan, the Chinese Lung, which is a dragon, or even freshwater counterparts which are responsible for lake monster legends. Charlie. Charlie, also called Slimmy Slim or the Twilight Dragon of Payette Lake, is a name attributed to a creature resembling a sea serpent, much like the Loch Ness monster. Believed by some to inhabit the deep, the cold waters of Payette Lake near Mokele, Idaho, its legend has persisted for decades. Local American traditions predating European settlement spoke of an evil spirit residing in the lake, possibly laying the foundation for the creature's myth. The first recorded sighting by settlers occurred in 1920, when workers near the upper end of the lake noticed what they initially thought was a log floating in the water. To their astonishment, the log began to move, suggesting something alive beneath the surface. Over the years, additional sightings have strengthened the belief in Charlie's existence. In August 1944, multiple groups of witnesses described seeing a creature measuring 30 to 35 feet in length. They noted a dinosaur-like head with pronounced jaws, camel-like humps, and a skin texture resembling a shell. Now, in September 1946, a group of 20 people claimed to see the serpent again. Dr. G. A. Taylor of Nampa, Idaho, described the creature as being 30 to 40 feet long, diving repeatedly into the lake and leaving a wave similar to that of a small motorboat. In 1954, A. Boone McCullum, editor of the Star News, held a contest to name the creature. The winning name, Charlie, was submitted by Leigh Isle Hennifer Turry of Springfield, Virginia. She suggested the name as a playful nod to the popular catchphrase, "Boss, you dare, Charlie," from Jack Pearl's radio show. DSV Alvin Sea Serpent Sighting. The DSV Alvin Sea Serpent sighting is a notable cryptozoological event that occurred during a deep sea dive off the Bahamas in 1965. During the submersible Alvin's early testing in the tongue of the ocean, a deep trench between Andros and New Providence, pilot Marvin McCamus and his colleague Bill Rainey reported encountering a large reptilian creature resembling a plesiosaur. McCamus initially gave a brief description of the sighting, stating that he saw 40 or 45 feet of a moving creature. However, he later provided a more detailed account to researcher Charles Berlitz, whose book, Without a Trace, 1977, chronicled McCamus's claims. McCamus described descending to about 5,000 feet, entering a crevasse approximately 3,000 feet deeper. While following a cable, he noticed movement and initially thought it was a utility pole. Upon closer observation, he realized it was a living creature with a long neck, flippers, a snake-like head, and lizard-like features. The animal swam upward and disappeared before the submersible's cameras could capture it. The sighting was recorded in Alvin's wet log, but was reportedly removed from the final version, leaving McCamus without evidence to back his claim. Now, despite his reluctance to discuss the event publicly, he did later on identify an illustration of a plesiosaur as resembling the creature he had seen. Cryptozoologist Scott Martis and others later interviewed McCamus, who clarified that the sighting occurred in 1965, not in 1969, as some other earlier reports have suggested. Tier 4. Heuvelmans System. The Heuvelmans system, developed by Bernard Heuvelmans, is a framework for classifying sea serpent sightings based on reports spanning from 1639 to 1966. After analyzing 587 accounts, Heuvelmans proposed 9 distinct types of sea serpents: the long-necked, merhorse, many-humped, many-finned, super otter, super eel, marine saurian, father of all the turtles, and yellow belly. Later, he added giant invertebrates as a 10th category. These types aim to represent hypothetical unknown animals, interpreted from the details provided by eyewitnesses. Heuvelmans' approach marked a departure from earlier theories such as A.C. Oudman's 1892 work, which proposed that a single species could explain all sea serpent sightings. The Heuvelmans system remains one of the most detailed classification efforts in cryptozoology, though many of its categories and interpretations are still debated. Researchers have offered alternative classification models, such as the Mangia-Copra, Coleman-Hugh, and Champlain systems, to address its perceived limitations. To develop this system, Heuvelmans examined and categorized 308 sightings, excluding cases that he deemed vague, hoaxes, or misidentifications. His classifications were informed by earlier researchers, including Ivan T. Sanderson, where he felt confident in identifying a type Heuvelmans assigned provisional scientific names, such as Megalothoria longicalis for the long-necked sea serpent, though these names are not universally recognized under zoological naming conventions. Each of the 9 types represented distinct physical or behavioral traits. For example, the long-necked and merhorse types described seal-like creatures with elongated necks. The many-finned type resembled a segmented creature or cetacean, and the many-humped type appeared as a series of humps moving through the water. Now, other types like the marine saurian and super eel were likened to prehistoric reptiles and elongated sea creatures. The father of all the turtles described a massive turtle-like cryptid, while a yellow belly was a mysterious pale creature, which could potentially have been a large shark or amphibian. Now, despite its detailed framework, the system faced criticism. Heuvelmans' reliance on eyewitness accounts has been questioned, with skeptics arguing that he assumed such reports were inherently accurate. This reliance led to speculative classifications and detailed reconstructions of the creature's appearances and behaviors. Some of his proposed types, such as the yellow belly and father of all turtles, were later considered implausible even by Heuvelmans. Critics like Richard Freeman argued that Heuvelmans showed a bias toward marine mammal explanations, while others noted that the system struggled to handle reports with overlapping traits, such as those describing both long necks and humps. Later, researchers have proposed amendments to the Heuvelmans system. Michael Woodley, in the Wake of Bernard Heuvelmans 2008, reinterpreted some types and discarded others. He said, for example, that the marine saurian might actually represent prehistoric cetaceans like Basilosaurus, and reclassified the many-humped and super otter as giant otters. Dale A. Drinan also revised the system, merging certain categories and introducing subdivisions for types like the marine saurian and super eel based on size and features. He combined the long-necked and merhorse types into a single plesiosaurian sea serpent category, which seemed more appropriate. Sturgeon Sea Serpent. The sturgeon sea serpent is often referred to as the Great Lake Monster, which is a creature said to inhabit Storsjön, a deep lake in Jämtland, Sweden. First reported in 1635, this cryptid is the most famous lake monster in Sweden. The creature's legend grew over centuries, with its existence gaining enough cultural significance that it was granted legal protection in 1986 when the city of Östersund celebrated its 200th anniversary. However, this protected status was revoked in 2005. Locals sometimes call it Storsea, similarly as Scotland's Loch Ness Monster, which is nicknamed Nessie. Described as a serpentine or aquatic reptile, this cryptid reportedly measures about 6 meters in length and has features such as fins, humps, and a dog-like head. The creature is deeply tied to local mythology. One tale from 1635 states that 2 trolls, Gjada and Kada, brewed a magical concoction by the lake, resulting in the birth of the creature. This monster grew so large that it encircled the island of Frossen, biting its own tail, before being bound by a spell carved into the Froso runestone. The stone raised on the island depicts a large serpent and is the northernmost runestone in the world, though its inscription makes no direct mention of the legend. Another 17th century legend suggests the monster's body stretches beneath the lake with its head and tail buried on opposite shores. This tail connects to the Froso runestone, which was said to protect the lake's ferrymen from the creature when it was intact. The stone, broken at one point, was reassembled to ward off the monster's influence. The interest in Storsea surged in the 1890s following multiple reported sightings. There have been efforts to capture this creature, and it even drew support from King Oscar II. Now, despite no conclusive scientific evidence, sightings have continued, and in 2008, a group claimed to have captured footage of a warm, moving object in the lake. Thus, this footage renewed enthusiasm among its believers. The Avalanche Sea Serpent. The accounts of the sea serpent sightings by the French gunboat, the Avalanche, between 1897 and 1898 offer a glimpse into a potential encounter with unidentified marine animals. These sightings, occurring off the coast of Vietnam, stand out due to their detailed documentation by Lieutenant Lagricille, the involvement of a crew of witnesses, and the apparent consistency of the descriptions across 3 separate encounters. The first sighting occurred in July 1897 in Ha Long Bay, where the crew observed 2 elongated creatures moving parallel to their ship. Estimated to be between 60 and 65 feet in length and 8 to 10 feet in diameter, the creatures exhibited vertical undulating movements, dark gray coloration, and what appeared to be multiple fins along their bodies. Their heads were small relative to their bodies, and although no harm was done to them, a gunshot fired by a crew member startled the animals, causing them to submerge and disappear. 7 months later, in February 1898, the Avalanche encountered what was believed to be the same pair of creatures near the 5-sea-long archipelago. This time, the ship actively pursued them with orders to capture or kill the animals for study. The chase involved the use of onboard weaponry, though the creatures evaded all attempts to harm or to capture them, demonstrating remarkable speed and agility. The creatures were noted to surface periodically, expelling water from their mouths in a manner that was distinct from whales. Their underwater movements left trails of air bubbles that allowed the crew to track their paths. Despite the prolonged pursuit lasting over an hour and a half, darkness forced the crew to abandon the chase. A third encounter followed shortly after on February 26, 1898, when the Avalanche returned to the area, joined by additional personnel from the Baynard. The crew quickly picked up the creature's trail by observing bubble formations on the water surface. During his pursuit, Lieutenant Lagricille and his men noted new details, including spiny or saw-like protrusions along the creature's backs, and fins near both the head and tail. The creature's heads were described as seal-like, and their movements created the illusion of 3 distinct humps when visible above the water. Despite their best efforts to drive the animals into shallower waters, the creatures once again eluded capture, diving out of sight after about 35 minutes of pursuing them. These sightings left the crew intrigued, but without physical evidence, the mystery of the creatures' identities remained unsolved. In the 1960s, cryptozoologist Bernard Heuvelmans suggested that the animals might be examples of a type he called the many-finned sea serpent. According to him, this cryptid is characterized by its elongated body, small rounded head, numerous fins, and a spiny ridge down its back. Descriptions of the creature's appearance, behavior, and water-expelling tendencies closely matched those given by the crew of the Avalanche. Heuvelmans theorized that the many-finned sea serpent might represent an unknown species of marine animal, potentially filling gaps in our understanding of the oceanic biodiversity. Now, while Heuvelmans' theory aligns well with the details provided by Lieutenant Lagricille, skeptics still argue that known marine animals could explain the sightings. Misidentified creatures such as oarfish, false killer whales, finless porpoises, or Goliath groupers might have contributed to the reports. The ocean is vast and largely unexplored, and sightings of unusual marine animals are not uncommon, so this allows for possibility that the reported sea serpents were extraordinary but still entirely natural phenomena. 1734 Hans Egede Sea Serpent. In July 1734, Norwegian missionary Hans Egede reported an extraordinary encounter with the massive sea creature in the Davis Strait, situated between Greenland and Canada's Baffin Island. His account is one of the earliest and most detailed descriptions of a sea serpent, vividly depicted a colossal marine animal towering above the ship, with its head rising to the height of the upper sails. Its terrifying presence was accompanied by unique features: a long snout from which it spouted water like a whale, broad upper sections with large flappers, and a lower body resembling a snake. As it moved, the creature's tail extended an entire ship's length away from its body, further emphasizing its staggering size. His written description referred to the animal as a very terrible sea animal, and a crew member produced a dramatic sketch to accompany the report, cementing its place in maritime history. The reptilian-like texture of its skin, combined with its unconventional backward movement, added to how strange the sighting is. The account remains one of the most significant early records of a sea serpent, which caused imaginations of seafarers and scholars alike, and led to debates about what him and his crew may have encountered in these uncharted waters. There is speculation about the creature's identity, and it ranges from misidentified marine life such as a whale or a giant squid to a potential relic of an unknown species. 1893 Captain Kringle. In December 1893, the British steamship Unfully, captained by R.J. Kringle, encountered a colossal marine creature near the Canary Islands that left a profound impact on those on board. Captain Kringle documented the sighting in the ship's log, describing the creature as a serpentine monsterfish, approximately 80 feet in length. Its glistening skin, short fins, spaced about 20 feet apart along its back, and a circumference compared to that of a full-sized whale set it apart from any known marine animal. The crew observed the creature for about half an hour as it moved through the water with remarkable speed. Now to note, the beast had 3 visible humps, and its head, which rose 15 feet above the water, had a fearsome appearance. An officer reported spotting rows of enormous teeth, further solidifying it as a formidable image. But despite the crew's collective experiences of the event, Captain Kringle later expressed some frustration, saying, "I have been so ridiculed about the thing that I have many times wished that anybody else had seen that sea monster rather than me." Pembroke Dock Serpent. In March 2003, an unusual event in the River Cleddau near Pembroke Dock, Wales, drew attention from many cryptozoologists. Witnesses reported seeing a strange aquatic creature that did not match the typical description of a sea serpent, but instead resembled what Belgian zoologist Bernard Heuvelmans called a marine saurian. On March 5, at the Shipwright Inn on Front Street, barmaid Leslie John first noticed a large, dark fin moving steadily through the water, creating ripples as it went. Several patrons, including landlord David Crew and diner Peter Thomas, hurried outside to observe the creature more closely. Peter described seeing a diamond-shaped, snake-like head raised a couple of feet above the water, gliding smoothly without any side-to-side or up-and-down motion. David added that it appeared to use unseen limbs for propulsion, estimating its length at about 5 times that of a car. The witnesses were certain they were observing a living animal rather than a mechanical object. A photograph of the creature was anonymously delivered to the pub a few days later. It showed a long, dark form in the water, which based on nearby landmarks was estimated to be around 60 feet long. Witnesses confirmed that the photo closely matched what they had seen, a creature with a relatively short neck, a broad body, a long tail, and no humps. This description aligned more with Heuvelmans' marine saurian category than the more commonly reported many-humped sea serpent. Pembroke Dock's deep and warm waters, known for attracting marine life typically found further south, made it a notable area for unusual sightings. A local deep dive operator named Alan Lewis offered an alternative explanation, suggesting the creature might have a military mini-submarine, noting that a Ministry of Defense vessel and Chinook helicopters carrying a 40-foot submersible were seen in the area shortly after the sighting. However, the witnesses rejected this theory due to the creature's behavior, such as raising its head above the water, and it was pretty animalistic. Heuvelmans theorized that marine saurians could be surviving descendants of ancient marine reptiles such as mosasaurs or thalattosuchians, differing from the popular plesiosaur hypothesis by linking these sightings to animals with closer living relatives such as monitor lizards or crocodiles. Despite the consistency of the eyewitness accounts and the photograph, media coverage altered key details, showing the creature as a long-necked humpback sea serpent more akin to the many-humped type. This misrepresentation likely arose from preconceived notions of what sea monsters are supposed to look like. The negatives of the photograph were never recovered, leaving researchers with only the image and testimonies of those who saw the creature. Tier 5. 1966 Blyth and Ridgeway Sea Serpent. In 1966, Britain's Che Blyth and John Ridgeway embarked on a historic journey to row across the Atlantic Ocean in a small 20-foot dory named English Rose III. Their adventure was filled with challenges, including hurricanes, towering waves, encounters with whales, and pretty low supplies. However, one of the most extraordinary moments of their voyage came halfway across the ocean when they occurred what they described as a massive sea serpent. While rowing under the cover of darkness, they were suddenly altered by the sound of immense splashes and waves surrounding their boat. Looking overboard, they saw an enormous serpentine creature illuminated by the light of the sea. The creature's long, sinuous body moved fluidly through the water, creating waves near their vessel. The men watched it in awe as the creature swam alongside them, eventually diving beneath the surface before reappearing some distance away with a loud splash, and then vanishing completely. They estimated its length to be at least 35 feet. Shrewsbury Sea Serpent. In the late 19th century, the North Shrewsbury River along the west coast of Sandy Hook became an unexpected stage for one of the many mysterious sea creature sightings that baffled North Atlantic waters during this era. The most notable sighting occurred on a clear night around 10 p.m. as the yacht Tilly S, helmed by Marcus P. Sherman and accompanied by Red Bank locals Lloyd Eglinton, Stephen Allen, and William Tinton, returned from a day at Highlands Beach. The witnesses, described as sober and respectable merchants by the Red Bank Register, encountered a creature unlike anything they had ever seen. While Eglinton kept watch at the bow, he reported calling out about an obstacle in their path. Sherman quickly steered the vessel hard to port, narrowly avoiding a collision. What they saw ahead of them wasn't debris, but it was a massive serpentine creature, eerily similar to the Sandy Hook sea serpent reported in prior years. Unlike the giant squid theorized in 1887's Scientific American article about earlier sightings, this being bore distinct, snake-like characteristics. The creature, about 50 feet long, moved with undulating, snake-like motions through the water. Its small, bulldog-shaped head rose halfway past the yacht's bow, emitting a fearsome roar. The head was adorned with short, rounded horns above large, silver dollar-sized eyes. Bristles like those of a cat covered its upper lip, and its flattened nostrils completed the odd visage. The elongated body tapered into a pointed, sword-like tail, giving the creature a pretty scary appearance. The monster swam leisurely toward the shore of Hartshorn's Cove, leaving the stunned crew of the Tilly S to think about this extraordinary encounter. The serpent wasn't seen by the Tilly S crew alone though. Over a dozen other boaters reported similar sightings that night, with their descriptions closely aligning. Over the following months and years, the mysterious creature earned the moniker Shrewsbury Sea Serpent. Unlike the Sandy Hook sightings, no scientific explanation was proposed, and its true nature remains a mystery. Carnival Breeze Serpent. In 2014, Paul George, a staff member on the Carnival Cruise Line's Carnival Breeze, experienced an extraordinary sighting while his ship traveled through the Gulf of Mexico. Observed from deck 12, an enormous marine creature swam alongside the vessel, causing confusion and awe among a group of passengers and crew. What Paul described was no ordinary sea animal, but it appeared to be a massive, unknown species, causing there to be questions about what might still be lurking in Earth's oceans. Paul recounted that the creature's back broke the surface, revealing a shiny, dark gray or black body with smooth, thick skin. Its form was robust and broad, with proportions that Paul linked to an enormous turtle, though lacking a shell. He estimated the exposed section alone to be over 50 feet long, dwarfing the ship's 30-foot lifeboats used for size comparison. The animal seemed calm, moving without visible strain as it swam against the current near the ship. At one point, it briefly raised its head above the water, allowing Paul to observe a thick, elongated structure reminiscent of a crocodile's snout. The head alone, he thought, measured about 10 feet in length. Now, this creature's exact features were difficult to discern due to the lighting and angle. Paul emphasized that it was unlike any known sea life he had ever encountered during his years working on cruise ships. He ruled out whales, squids, and large turtles, noting the animal's unique proportions and movement. Its propulsion mechanism remained unknown, but white water disturbances near its body suggested the presence of powerful, submerged flippers or some type of caudal fin. Paul's encounter lasted about 30 seconds before the creature steered away and submerged itself once again. While the lack of photographic evidence limits the account to anecdotal status, his description aligns with historical reports of giant turtle without a shell, sightings, and theories surrounding large unknown marine reptiles. Cryptozoologists have suggested potential candidates such as Pliosaurs or Mosasaurs, which are extinct marine reptiles thought to have vanished millions of years ago, but occasionally hypothesized to persist in deep ocean habitats. His detailed descriptions and his distinction between the animal and known marine creatures add credibility to his story. His accounts recall other sightings of massive marine creatures too, such as the super predator theory posited to explain unusual underwater activity and predation patterns. Glaring Serpent. In 2001, a large fjord in Norway called Storfjorden became the site of a reported sea serpent sighting by two fishermen working aboard the vessel Clearing. South of Sola Island, they encountered what they described as a multi-humped sea serpent moving at high speed. The creature revealed two enormous humps, estimated to be between 5 and 10 meters in length each, with a rounded or oval shape and a dark coloration. As it swam, the humps broke the surface of the water, generating foam and spray, suggesting significant speed and power. The fishermen thought that the animal's body extended well beyond the visible rear hump, indicating a pretty big size for the creature. Unfortunately though, the head of the creature wasn't observed, leaving the exact nature of its front anatomy unknown. However, there have been reports of other similar sightings in the fjord around the same period and add to the intrigue, though there are specific details of those encounters that remain scarce. Mobot. In the early 1960s, the underwater robot named Mobot, developed by Shell Oil Company for scanning the seafloor for oil deposits, captured a footage of a peculiar invertebrate sea serpent that operators nicknamed Marvin. Accounts of the sighting vary in place and time. Some reports suggest Oregon in 1963 or Santa Barbara in 1966, while a Californian press account from November 1962 claims the filming occurred around a month earlier. The footage was viewed live from the drilling ship Eureka. Marvin was estimated to be approximately 15 feet long and only 6 inches in diameter. The creature moved with a distinctive corkscrew or spiral motion, which is a feature that captured the attention of marine biologists. Still, images from the footage revealed that Marvin's body was wound with ridges, adding to its unusual appearance. Cape Breton Island Serpent. In 2003, lobsterman Wallace Cartwright shared a remarkable sea serpent encounter during an interview with CBC Radio's As It Happens. The sighting occurred off Cape Breton Island, Nova Scotia, near Point Akani, while Cartwright and a friend were heading to check their lobster traps south of a lighthouse. Initially, they mistook the creature for a floating log, but as they approached, they realized it had a head that rose when it became aware of them. He described an uneasy feeling as they drew nearer to the creature, noting its intimidating size and appearance. He described it as a brown animal with a head reminiscent of a sea turtle and a long snake-like body. The body had a girth comparable to a 5-gallon bucket. He remarked on the potential danger, saying that the creature could have leaped out of the water and posed a significant threat to them. Now, despite their caution, they decided to approach the creature, prompting it to dive instinctively. However though, due to the shallow depths, it struck the seabed, stirring up large amounts of mud. The creature resurfaced, and Cartwright and his companion followed it for about 45 minutes. Cartwright estimated its length to be between 6 and 8 meters, and he said that in his 3 decades of fishing in the area, he had never seen anything comparable to such a being. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment on what you thought about the video.